Do you think the public perception of RV quality aligns with reality, or is there a gap between expectations and what manufacturers are actually delivering?
There's a lot of gaps in that way, and a lot of it is from the COVID era, which we'll talk about at length. This video is probably going to get tagged with like a COVID misinformation warning, but that's certainly not our intent.
Alrighty, welcome to another RV Voice episode. Today, my background decided not to work, but I have a nice white brick background. I actually have a black curtain back here. It just doesn't look super hot when I do that. Usually I have mountains because it's more camping-esque, but today we get bricks, so it is what it is. But if you guys haven't heard about Bish Fix, we are actually going to be changing the name to RV Fix, and that's going to stay. So if you want to still get that RV Voice code, promo code RV Voice. Let me pull it up here real quick. Sorry. Promo code RV Voice for the discount. This says Bish Fix, and I apologize. That will be changing to RV Fix. If you want to learn more about that, it's called rvfix.com, but we'll get there later. So that being said, we have a new person on today, and this is actually my first. I have a mobile tech on here once, but this guy, this is his main course of business. He's been doing this for quite some time. He travels back and forth from home area down to the southern part of the state in Austin, Texas. And I wanted to bring him in on his point of view if RVs are junk. And we just had that conversation with Josh, the RV nerd, and JD from Big Truck, Big RV on a live stream in December. It might have been November. I can't remember. It's all rolling together. But I'll put that in there, the links here. But let's welcome Mike in here. Mike Murphy's his name. Mike, thank you for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, I would love it if you could kind of hop into your background of RV technicianry and kind of tell me where you came from, how you started it, how long you've been doing it. Just brag about yourself, build a little credibility in yourself.
Sounds good. So my name's Mike Murphy. I'm the owner of Cozy Camper Mobile RV Services. We operate primarily in Texas and Illinois seasonally. I'm an RV inspector first and technician second. My specialty is on the pre-purchase and warranty inspections, though I am a practicing technician as well. Everybody needs to have their RV fixed sometimes. Not everybody gets an inspection. We started our business back in 2019. We actually started with a rental fleet. And so we're going to talk about COVID campers. My whole fleet was COVID campers, basically, when we had it. But what I found is that as they grew older and they'd be used more, I was spending more and more time and then hiring technicians to come out and fix it. So I went to RV tech school, learned how to fix them myself, and then quickly realized that the more sustainable business would probably be to offer mobile service versus try to keep these rental RVs on the road.
Very much so. So how long have you been the inspector then?
We've been doing inspections since 21.
21. So you're you're tenured like me. I about 3. I started in the RV industry in 21 September or October, basically right there. And I started as a sales guy. And there's a lot to know about RVs. You know, I've come from the residential world. I used to be basically working my way up to be a GC. I was a contractor at first. I was a foreman, started going up to be a contractor, did my own stuff for a little while, not super long, but then I jumped into RVs and there's a whole nother ballgame. Obviously, similar construction habits or construction building practices, but still a little different. And we'll hop into that a little more. And I'm really curious to hear what you say. So we're going to talk about state of RV quality as it sits now. So I'm kind of curious. You built your own little following on Instagram and Facebook as well. You say that's a big part. What are your audience saying about RV quality today? Are their complaints louder than compliments? First question.
So the word, and I heard Josh say this exact same thing, but I could post a video of the most perfect RV that I've ever seen, and the comments are going to be, it's junk. All RVs are junk. They're overpriced junk. All the time. And then you'll start to get some people that say, you know, if the video is about a Forest River product, you'll get disagreements in the comments about, I had the greatest Forest River in the world, or I had the worst Forest River in the world. But it seems like the first step is to go negative on whatever the brand is.
Yeah, definitely. It's And then, a lot of people don't know when they see Forest River, they just tag it as a Forest River product. Now, Forest River is probably the biggest beast in it all. There's Thor, there's, what's the other? No, I don't even remember off the top of my head. But Forest River encompasses or umbrellas, 50 brands? Maybe.
A huge number of brands and intellectual properties.
And there's two totally different, for me, Flagstaff, when I was selling Flagstaff, or even, I guess, was it Rockwood? Rockwood's the same thing. Fantastic. Absolutely. They come off come off the line pristine. They're made in different factories, every single one of them. So Flagstaff is Flagstaff, Rockwood is Rockwood, but Flagstaff isn't built the same as like a Forest River Vibe or a like a Delaterra, which would be under the East to West. I mean, they're all separately built in different locations, all in Indiana, but whatever, they're totally different. So I love the fact that, people don't know that, but I also don't like the fact that people don't know that. So, but do you think the public perception of RV quality aligns with reality, or is there a gap between expectations and what manufacturers are actually delivering?
There's a lot of gaps in that way, and a lot of it is from the COVID era, which we'll talk about at length. This video is probably going to get tagged with like a COVID misinformation warning, but that's certainly not our intent, right? There is a gap, and I see lately as we see the 2025s come in, I see the pendulum moving in a positive direction. It seems like customer service and QC is maybe starting to return at all, but it's not perfect, and folks, as you know, will take their new RVs home and their tankless water heaters don't work, or one of their two air conditioners don't work. And then on their refrigerator is a sticker from the manufacturer that talks about their quality control process and how they test everything 95 times. And so then the customer, the consumer is standing there saying, well, that sign says they tested it, but that air conditioner doesn't work. So, what happened between then and now? And I think that's the big thing to take away, is that is really the gap. I don't see the same problems we saw in 21 and 20 when my fleet was new. I don't see the same level of things happening, but I don't see that perception has caught up to the consumer yet.
Yeah, and I kind of talked to that with JD and Josh when I had them on the other day. They had it very similar. It's on the up and up, but I guess they both had the kind of nervousness or the idea that if COVID were to happen again, same problems would arise. It was a supply and demand issue, right? Basically what it was. And all of a sudden, everyone had the opportunity to work remote. And they're like, well, why not get a camper? Well, that rise went up, but then parts, couldn't come in because, trying to ship overseas or whatever it may be, and tariffs and whatever safety precautions, and people weren't working in the factories elsewhere. So parts everywhere dropped, and they had to pull in parts that they weren't used to working with. And then it just threw everything off off their normal way of working. So it kind of made some issues, but Mike, from your perspective, has it really improved? Has it stayed the same? Has it declined since your, 21 that you've been in, or what trends or examples have stood out to you since you've been in the RV industry?
So yeah, like I said, I see a slight improvement in the aggregate. I think it's worth noting, and I don't think this gets talked about enough, is that, you'll see in the comments and online, they'll talk about RVs from pre-2020. But if we had a time machine and we went back to 2020, people would be talking about pre-2008 RVs. And so it seems like there's this moving goalpost that, and I'll admit, it seems like, RVs of that era were rock solid because fifth wheels weighed 20,000 pounds, right? But it seems like they were, rock solid in that era, but it's like, okay, so where is the line where quality actually began? We can all agree that it took a dip due for exactly those reasons that you described. Mm-hmm. So if 2025, I'm not making this claim, but let's just say for the sake of argument that 2025 is analogous to 2018, are we happy with that? Is that where we want to be? Or can we find ways to do even better? And so that's the conversation that, I think we'll have, because my first rental fleet RV was manufactured in 2019, and it was great. I didn't have a problem with it until I sold it. The next one I bought was built in February 2020. And that was, like the first week of the pandemic when the thing started to fly apart.
Yeah.
And that thing was a wreck that I battled with the entire time we owned it until we put it out to pasture. So
Yeah.
I do see things moving in a positive direction right now. I'm cautiously optimistic, but it's not universal. As I've said, I've kind of praised some 2025s that I've seen recently. Brinkley, and you mentioned Rockwood. That's one where the inspection reports tend to be very short. I don't really want to criticize by name, but I've seen some other brands that kind of stand on that quality reputation, and then I get in there and do an inspection, and I find slide outs that are misaligned, or roofs that weren't sealed, or slides that leak. And that's the sort of thing when we come in for an inspection, regardless of what the price point is, from the cheapest $15,000, whatever travel trailer, to the most expensive triple axle 5-slide fifth wheel in the Brinkley family. All of them should not have leaky roofs and slides that don't work, right? That's the bare minimum that we can accept. And so I'm seeing the negative, the really bad part of the bell curve, less and less, but it's still out there. So we do have some space to go.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I haven't spent near as much time in RVs that I used to. I spent 2 years on the lot, or maybe a year and a half or so, about 2 years, and I saw, the difference I had to do. So at our dealership, we were a smaller dealership, so we wore many hats, right? And I had to do the DAF, delivery acceptance form type deal, and then I had to go through the inspection. And I specifically remember, I will point out Flagstaff because I love Flagstaff and I praise them, but every time they came on the lot, they were perfect. I didn't see anything. Even the shakedown, if you guys don't know what shakedown is, basically these things travel all over the U.S. They're all built in basically the heart of Indiana for the most part. There's a couple outliers across the U.S., but those things go a long ways, and they have sawdust in the vents, whatever, screws will, pop loose, or screws that just fell out of the guy's pocket. That happens. So I can't just blame all, things just shake loose, and you'll see that. But even Flagstaff, I said there was nothing ever. I didn't see sawdust or nothing. So I love seeing those things. But you did bring up COVID campers, and it sounds, what I'm hearing from you, it sounds like you kind of do believe that COVID campers, or the name COVID campers, is a buzzword in the industry, and that's a fair label in your opinion.
Yeah, to an extent, I think it's overused, and the real problem. So we talk about lack of quality control, and in that era, I was doing inspections. I was doing so many. I might do 3. Let's pick on Grand Design for a second. I might do 3 Grand Designs in a week, and I would see on a Tuesday Grand Design that was immaculate, and then I would see a Wednesday Grand Design that the report was everything's fixable, but the report's very long. And I got the sense, I'm like, well, is there an A team and a B team at Grand Design? And this one was built by the A team, or this one went through QC, and this one got rushed out the door, and it didn't. So, yeah, there definitely were COVID campers, but it was so inconsistent. I'm seeing a little bit more consistency in what's coming off the line now. Like if brand X is kind of always this way, and then brand Y is kind of always that way. Whereas in that era, it was wildly inconsistent. It was inconsistent to the point where, the living room might have a Dometic air conditioner and the bedroom would have a Furrion air conditioner, right? Or, these 3 that came off the line had tank type air conditioner or tank type water heaters, and these ones had tankless. So, there were so many little problems that in the aggregate, they grew up into big problems.
Yeah, and I see that, and I guess in people, like when people are looking for, say they're trying to YouTube an RV fix, right? Everyone's like the YouTube Academy. It could be the same year, same model, everything, but it could be a totally different fridge. So it's not going to work for that video. I think, or this next question kind of rolls into what I'm saying. So what challenges did manufacturers face during the pandemic's demand surge, and how did those challenges affect the RV production? We kind of touched on it with the parts. And I don't think people realize that that's an actual thing. It's like these guys will run out of Furrion fridges and start putting Everchill or Norcolds in them because they're all the same size, and that's just kind of how it goes. And some of these might have a little more extra problems. Do you see anything else that the manufacturers had challenges with?
Well, so in most cases, the dealership is that sort of like last link in the manufacturing chain. And with the explosion in demand, and then difficult working conditions, right? Wearing masks and whatever else was going on back then, especially regionally, was very different. Many skilled RV technicians went off into the world and started their own businesses. So on the one space, there's kind of a brain drain out of the industry where people went off and started their own businesses for whatever reason. And then there was extreme pressure at just the dealership level to keep up with what was going out the door. So, I remember one day in 21, I did my inspection, which took about 8 hours, and I watched that dealership do 4 PDIs in the bay next to me on 4 different RVs in about 2 hours each. And when I was talking to them, their perspective was, well, if it has a roof and it has an air conditioner, it's going to pass our PDI in that era. This was not y'all's chain, just so you know. But all of that all of that to say that. So the problem with the supply chain is well defined, but there's also these second and third order impacts that took off the lack of skilled technicians to begin with, and then many of those skilled technicians going off into the world. And it's worth noting that I was in a completely different career in that era, and I jumped. Millions of people changed careers during the pandemic era. So all of these things conspired together to make the COVID camper phenomenon that you're describing.
Interesting. I never thought of it like that. Guys kind of just leaving to make their own business. I mean, you probably being maybe one of them. There was kind of that same era. I was thinking about, I guess quotas. That was they had I'm sure not every manufacturer runs this way, but some manufacturers do, as in the more you pump out, the more you get paid for, right? So what happens with that? Well, these guys get really skilled at what they're doing, right? They usually have these guys do the chassis. They do the underbelly. They drill all the holes for the underbelly. They put all the pipes in there. They flip it over. Next guy does tires. Roll on. Next guy's doing the underlayment, so the subfloor, and then after that, just going into cabinetry. And everyone does their one job, or I guess their area of a job, and those guys get very skilled very quickly. Problem is, when they get skilled, they get faster. When they get faster, stuff happens. It's just the trick of the trade. But when you get pumped out quotas, go ahead.
I was going to say, especially when I'm sorry for stepping on you, especially when people are working 60, 80-hour weeks and getting paid overtime, right? That's when mistakes happen. So even I try to assume positive intent, right? I want to assume that everybody had the best intention, but it didn't always manifest that way.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, you're trying to pump out numbers, more money, more go out, money comes in. I actually had the thought, I guess yesterday, I'm curious on this one. This is not really in my questions, but curious for your perspective on it. Manufacturers, I mean, obviously it's all a little bit of supply and demand and economics, right? This is probably kind of a big picture question. Whether it be PDI'd or not, which they do, most of them do, they might grab one of every 5 or one of every 3, and then some claim to do every single one of them gets PDI'd 2 or 3 times. Do you see that maybe numbers to failure? I don't know if I'm asking this properly. So manufacturers kick out a certain number, but they're okay with X amount being a failure just because it meets the quota and it meets, I guess, either way, it keeps them in this budget that they have to make. You know what I mean? They could be towards the bottom end or towards the higher end. But just kind of curious if your thoughts are kind of similar to what I'm, I guess.
Yeah, it has been explained to me that there is and I have never worked for a dealership, but I ask, right? I'm genuinely curious. I'm not here to condemn. I think you've heard me. I'm not here to condemn any part of the RV industry, right? But
good.
It's good. Bishes, of course. No, so but what it has been explained to me that there is sort of an acceptable loss number, that there are going to be some RVs that come off the line, and that everybody in the chain is aware that this is going to be an issue. there's going to be so many issues. Even the most highest end brands, let's say a Tiffin, which we all agree is a very high end motorhome. But if they buy their air conditioners from Coleman, they're like, well, this run of Coleman air conditioners had like a 97%, success rate. That means 3% of them fail before the first use. So we know they're going to some of them are going to get to dealerships and not work. And those aren't real numbers, but the answer is not 100%. So that is true that I see in the moment. And then that's where the warranty process kicks in later that will fix it. And you hope that, optimally, from my point of view, you bring in the private inspector who's going to take the time to document all this stuff. But if you don't, it's your hope that the dealership PDI catches that problem for you before you take it home and then have to return it to the dealer. Maybe you're getting ready to go on a long trip. You didn't know that AC wasn't going to work because the dealership PDI told you it did. Or maybe it did work and it failed after the PDI, but there's no proof of that. There's no proof that it worked at the factory. There's no proof that it worked during the dealership PDI. So now you're left with a bad taste in your mouth. You don't really know what happened. That's one of the differences between what a dealer or even a manufacturer inspection does and what. And even this RV that I'm standing in, which is new, fan worked when I inspected it, and then we got it home and it stopped working. So, it happens.
Yep. I mean, we've had, I was always warned, it happens all the time. Not all the time. For everyone watching this, doesn't happen all the time. But I've had people on their walkthrough, the day they're taking this thing home, they'll be walking around and all of a sudden everything goes. The converter blows out. That's not a good feeling for the customer when they're buying, a $50,000+ toy, but it happens. I mean, these things go down the road, they shake, and they're supposedly top or rated at a 8-point-something earthquake overall the whole time of it going down the road. And then, taking 70 to 80 mile an hour winds the whole way they're traveling. That's not easy on anything. Obviously the cars are made in a totally different manner, very highly rated suspension. So you're smooth riding. And they're also built by robots. These RVs are built by hand, most of them. I mean, there's probably a couple of them that might have some high end, we wouldn't be able to afford them. They'd be too expensive if they were all robotic. But anyway, so that all plays into that. And, it's kind of interesting, the acceptance of loss. I've never heard that exact word, but that's what my mind was thinking. But do you see any ripple effects from the pandemic that are still kind of rolling in models today, or no?
So it's really the supply chain thing is more or less resolved because we own we do technician stuff too. Basically, we can get whatever part we need in 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
The only thing that would take weeks to do or something would be if you needed to put a new roof on or you had to take a wall out or slide. It's stuff that is labor intensive and needs skilled hands. But if this air conditioner went out today, I could probably have a new one today. So that's so not that it never happens in the summer. Fan motors become in short supply for air conditioners because it's summer, right? But that sort of thing is over. The second and the third order effects are still with us, though. So, the dealers did lose and the manufacturers did lose some of that skilled labor. And they are now training that replacement generation that's still coming in. And then the sneaky thing that has happened is, and I hear this from dealers all the time because it's surprising that 5 years from the first start of the pandemic, it was 5 years ago, this time of year, that we were watching CNN and goofy things were happening in China, right? And so we're 5 years in. Most RV owners are on 3 to 5 year cycles of RV ownership. And so we would expect that group of buyers, many of them would be starting to think about their second RV right now. The problem, though, is that prices were high during that time, and they bought those RVs at full retail price on 180-month loans. So they're, now the market has adjusted. So they're way upside down on those loans, and it's difficult to trade them in now without
being highly upside down,
a big check or being highly upside down. So there's that third order effect now from that era where people have RVs they don't want and can't really trade them in without some kind of either financing negative equity or writing a big check or keeping it and renting it out, whatever their solution is. But that is the sort of second and third order effect that I see that is still affecting. And I hear it from dealers all the time because I don't work at a dealer. I go to a different dealership every day. And many dealerships are telling me, like, hey, I had this great client came in, they wanted to buy an XYZ, but they had $30,000 in negative equity for something they bought in 2021, and they can't do anything with it. So that's the hangover that I still see lingering with us.
Interesting. I never thought of that. That makes total sense, though. I mean, because I've had, at least I had someone call in and talk to me and ask me for, help them out. And I had to send them in to like we have a corporate office team, and they said, yeah, they were just too upside down. Like, we tried. I'm like, right when they told me like how they must sailed, I was like, ooh, like, yeah, it's going to be tough. Like, I just I didn't think about that, but they probably bought about that time, and makes total sense to me because they did have that surge of demand. So, and then there was less of them. So yeah, the price went up, and man, I wish I was selling in that time because I would have crushed it. Would have been a good time to be selling.
Exactly. And that's sort of the problem, though, is that like a lot of dealerships were crushing it. Yeah. And then now it's especially those smaller chains where maybe they only have 1 to 3 dealerships and they're reliant on that 3 to 5 year cycle, and they're just not coming back. No. Whereas some of the biggest chains can maybe afford that and can take the hit on, just bringing in new customers. But if you're a 2 or 1 location shop, that's tough because you're not getting those repeat customers. So it's a serious thing. I'm interested in. I think it's going to, maybe we'll call it a fourth order effect. It's going to accelerate the consolidation of different dealership chains because these places are over leveraged. It's going to be an interesting next 2 years to see what happens.
It's already been happening.
Yes.
I mean, if you're in the RV industry, you can see it happening, but not everybody is. So, anyway, do you think there are lessons that have been learned through this for the manufacturers? Was it simply a case of survival during extraordinary times, or let me re-ask that. I'm going to re-ask the whole question. Do you think lessons learned during that period will lead to lasting changes in the way RVs are manufactured, or is it simply a case of survival during extraordinary times?
I always want to seek positive intent, but this is not the first shock to the RV industry that we've seen. 2008 was a disaster, the global financial crisis, right? And that's where you saw that first wave of consolidation. And so, coming out of that, let's do a little bit better. We'll build better RVs, sweet. And then once we got into a space where we could forget those lessons, we did. And so it is my hope that we've learned lessons in the industry, but it is my fear that we haven't. And so we'll have to see what the next stress is to know that lesson.
All right. Well, makes sense to me. I think that COVID era, I mean, they kind of crushed it all. It kind of got rid of that phenomenon, or at least answered all the questions that we need to within that. Let's talk about the customer experience here a little bit here, Mike. Do you think manufacturers and dealerships are doing enough to address customer concerns about build quality and after-sales service?
There is a huge disconnect there. And most of my clients tell me, oh my God, Joe Schmo at whatever dealership was amazing. He helped me through everything. He even moved boxes in my new RV. They're thrilled to death most of the time with their sales staff.
Yeah.
And then it's that after sales that becomes a problem. And I think a lot of this is just people don't understand how the RV, and I'm not an apologist for how some of this stuff works, but they just don't understand how it works. And like we were describing, if your air conditioner goes out, I can get you an air conditioner today, tomorrow at the latest. But getting whatever manufacturer to approve that warranty claim can be a challenge. And, especially if once you start getting into these like real specialty components, like, digital multiplex control panels and stuff, trying to get a new one out of a manufacturer can be very challenging, and it might wait because it's broken, and even your technician and service advisor know it's broken, but the manufacturer wants you to try to reset it one more time before they do it. And then it's that guy's day off, and then it slides into next week. Right. So that is a challenge. And, I think what y'all are doing with what you call RV Fix is excellent. There's some other folks doing similar things. I think that's great because a lot of stuff, one of our pillars is RV owner education. a lot of this stuff is field serviceable, where if you have, sort of your bomb technician on the phone, they can walk you through this sort of thing. But also people don't take advantage of many mobile services. They think they're beholden to a dealership. And in many spaces, that's the place you should go. But many manufacturers will authorize that mobile technician service. Maybe not all of it. Maybe they don't authorize the service fee or something. But commonly you can. And most of those guys are small businesses, and it's 1 to 5 person operations where they have the focus to address 1 or 2 RVs at a time, instead of a service advisor at a super center that's got 200 RVs in their care right now, and it can get lost in the shuffle. So I really would like to see a little bit, because we just bought this RV, and maybe it's because they knew who I am, but nobody told me about authorizing mobile service. They just told me, we don't do mobile service. Well, okay, Where do I get it? What is included in that mobile service? What isn't? Do you have recommendations for people that I can work with? That's a big one. And then we touched on it earlier. I'm hesitant to see that sticker on the fridge that talks about the quality and the PDI. We put it through an earthquake and we spray it with a hose and it doesn't leak. And then it does those things, right? So you're kind of setting yourself up a little bit for failure. I would be more interested to see information about the warranty for when things do go wrong printed on the fridge. So this is the step, this is what happens when stuff does break. We do our best, but when stuff breaks, this is what you do. That would be, I think, a little bit more meaningful to the consumer than, because I don't think they believe it when they see like, oh, we do a 200 PDI and then their slide leaks. So they don't believe it. So I do think there is a disconnect there, but it's a manageable one. I don't think it would be particularly challenging to cross that bridge.
Yeah, I appreciate the shout out on the RV fix. It is something that we're trying to really hone in on the sores and pains of owning an RV, right? When you buy an RV, there's people that buy it, they take it out one time, and then all of a sudden it sits in the shop for 3 months. Well, we don't want that. We want you to call in, talk to our RV technician, and you can get basically a 90% diagnosis over the phone. If not, the first phone call, 40% of the time, we're solving the issue right then and there with you. So you never have to bring it in, whatever. And if so facto, we can't fix it with that phone call. We're going to get about 90% of it. 90 to 93%, we can diagnose everything as much as possible. I mean, obviously, sometimes need further diags, but then we can also have parts ordered and warranty submitted by the end of that phone call. That being said, that saves us, instead of have your RV being for 90 days, we're in the 15 to 25 days tops of the whole start to finish cycle. That means when we have the parts submitted and parts real warranty accepted, we can get parts there ordered. When they get there, we call you and bring you in, and then 1 to 3 days you're in and out of the shop. Not always for every case. There's a couple outliers. That's one thing that we're trying to do. That's really our big push, because the after sales stuff. Because again, like you said, I sold a couple hundred RVs, but the problem wasn't the sale, because I had very few sales go bad for me. There was only 1 or 2 people that stand out like that wasn't a great sale, and it's because they wanted it really bad. I usually chose my customers, Right. But stuff happens. The RV, things happen, and I can't do everything about it to fix it. And then a lot of it falls back on the dealer, which is pretty unfortunate, because you get the whole walkthrough. I mean, I'm assuming most dealerships do this. They get a full walkthrough, make sure everything's working. Hey, this, that, and the other, this is how you use this. Everything gets turned on and shut off right in front of you. But then you take it down the road and something else doesn't work, and then it falls back on the dealer. That's always not super fair, because the dealer didn't make that fridge. The dealer didn't make that, washing machine or whatever. They didn't put the roof on. It's a brand new RV and it starts leaking. That's not always fair that the dealer, they take a lot of heat for that. But interesting. The after sales service would be great. I mean, we're all trying some way, shape, or form. I know that, I guess Outdoorsy uses CoachNet. That's another kind of mobile RV service type deal. They help out a lot too. So, but anyway, have you seen any meaningful improvements or how companies handle warranties and customer support after or in the recent years? You kind of touched on warranty, so I kind of want to hear a little more about your warranty background there.
Yeah, it can be, and we've done warranty work for many manufacturers. I'm hesitant to do it though. Like as a small business, I can't wait for 90 days to get paid, right? I don't have that. I don't have that space.
Yep.
I also can't. It's difficult for me to justify. Maybe I got to make 2 trips out there, and now I'm not going to get paid. So I have to make that judgment call. Do I tell this person they have to pay me more because I've come out there 3 times because Lippert needed more data every single time I went out there? So it's difficult for us. Third party, I've seen honestly probably the best, most positive change in some of these third party extended warranties, where I'm going out there one time, diagnosing it, tell them they need a new cooling unit on a fridge. They're like, okay, we authorize this much for it. Okay, I'll have it shipped here tomorrow. Day after, I'll install it. Then I get paid 40 minutes after the job is done.
Nice.
That's been great. And in my view of the world, if that company can do it, why can't manufacturer X do it? So I would like to see, even if they outsource it to one of these other companies, I would like to see us move in that direction. Because, and if you'd asked me, about extended warranties 5 years ago, I'd have been like, dude, no. But now as somebody that's interfaced with them, we did an AC for someone the same day. So they called us out in the morning. There's a supply house in town. We diagnosed it was a bad compressor, called the supply house. Yeah, we've got one in stock. Call the third party. Yeah, that's cool. We'll do it. Drove down here, picked it up, went back, put it on the roof the same day their AC was going again. Not that happens every time, but it is possible. So wow. I would like to see that. I haven't really seen any positive movement at large, but I have, like, some manufacturers are better than others. Brinkley tends to be one that I work with very easily. Alliance is one that I work with very easily, but they're not all that way. Some that will remain nameless we have found, will cheat us out of an hour here or there, right? So maybe it's a manufacturer that is warrantying, let's say, a Coleman air conditioner, and Coleman authorizes 2 hours. This manufacturer tells us that they only authorize 1 hour. Like, well, I know you're going to go back and bill Coleman for 2, so where's that extra hour going, right? That is still happening, and that makes it hard for us, the mobile guys, the small businesses, to do it. And if it's not fair to you, because you, like you said, not you personally, but dealership chain, to the same thing, right? So I'm going to have to, and now I'm going to incur the wrath of that client, and none of this is my dealership's fault. So I would like to see, the third party stuff is great. I would love to see the rest of the industry move in that direction.
It is interesting. I never thought about, like, why do they? I know they have the manufacturer warranty, right? Whether it be 1 year or 2 year or +3, whatever it may be. Typically, it's usually 1 year bumper to bumper and +3 structural, whatever all entails in that. Every one of them's a little different. But I never thought about outsourcing the whole warranty in general. Just be done with it. You can pay. Here's a 2 year, here's a 3 year, here's a 5 year. I think that'd be interesting. Some of them have 7 or whatever.
Right.
But that'd be interesting to see in the long run. I also heard, we'll get to the next question here shortly, but like when I was talking to JD and Josh about the same topic, it'd be interesting. I think a lot of issues would be solved with, one, better suspension, right? If you just had a smoother ride on each of these RVs, you're probably going to have a lot less problems, But you could also do like an odometer, like, hey, 2 years or 1 year or 30,000 miles. Or whatever it may be. I mean, that's a lot on an RV, considering that people use them less than 10 days a year on average. But what do you think about that? What do you think? Any of those things would help out? Obviously,
there's no doubt that making improvements like that would be helpful. And there's a whole bunch. I heard them say that, and it's funny. This RV has the Lippert Road Armor suspension, I think it's called, and it was the first time I'd ever pulled, any RV with an upgrade. It's always been simple suspensions for me. Yeah. This thing, it was like a cloud behind my truck, right? And it weighs 5,000 more pounds than my old one, but it was like this cloud that just followed me. It was incredible. And then like nothing had fallen off the walls, right? So yeah, there's a lot to be said for stuff like that. Also, RVs, a lot of these, particularly fifth wheels, have really, really tight tolerances for their cargo capacity. You're seeing these with like 600-pound cargo capacity, and you're like, well, that's my clothes and dishes. Yeah. And so, these RVs are traveling down the road at capacity or over it all the time. So of course that ride is going to be absolutely brutal on the inside of that RV. So I do think some things like that would make a big difference. Also, so would education about how to load that RV, right? Because you see these big rear garages that aren't really garages. I saw one where somebody put a jet ski back there, and it's like, and it's like that adds a lot of weight behind the axle, and that's gonna mess everything up, right? You talk about flex, on failure, that's gonna create a lot of problems. So the owner education would go a long way. Upgrading some components like that would go a long way, and just making sure that the things that we're building are actually within spec. Like when I see a fifth wheel that has a 500-pound cargo capacity or something less than 1,000 pounds, let's say, that's a tough sell and is maybe a red flag. You do that because that's full tanks. If your tanks are full, you're overweight.
Yeah,
and that's before you put a shirt inside. So I do think that stuff would make a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, you're towing the line. It's not really fair. Like you're supposed to take you can't. What are you going to take with you if you don't have 15 to 2,000 pounds of extra weight to move?
Right.
It's crazy. So, but on to that question, have you seen any advancements or what advancements in RV design or technology have directly addressed common frustrations that RVers typically face?
So I've seen things in two directions. This is a Brinkley, if you can't tell, and Brinkley is standing on their ceremony that this is, we do they call it automotive grade sealant. It's sealed differently. They should basically never leak. We've got like a 7-year warranty on it, whatever it is. That's awesome. The jury's out if that's going to work. I hope it does.
Yeah.
But the attempt, and they're not the first to do, this kind of where you don't have the exterior seals on the sidewalls. So it's my hope that that'll work, but I love that they're trying, right? Yeah. Because this is a pain point. I love that they're trying. They're not the only ones that are innovating in that space. There are some things that I think are moving in the wrong direction. And, like right here, I have a 12-volt refrigerator. And a 12-volt compressor refrigerator, when it works, is awesome. It doesn't care what the weather is. If you have a solar panel, you can run it forever without burning propane. But they are brutal to service. And
really?
Whereas, like the old propane-style refrigerators has an access door outside. I can just open and fix what I need to fix and then be done. If anything goes wrong with this, I basically have to take it out of the wall without damaging anything to fix it. There's just less serviceable parts. The same is true with the tankless water heaters. There's a little bit less to service, so there's more replacement, which is kind of more catastrophic more difficult to the RV because you have to break the seal, reseal it. Now there's a potential for water intrusion. You want to take the fridge out. Maybe I scratch the cabinets or the countertop because it's going to go over an island. So those are fixable. It would be nice if they would just put access panel doors behind the fridge like they used to. But that is sort of a technology that I see moving in the opposite direction. And then also, I don't like these touch panels in most circumstances in the RV. They are prone to failure, and they are more difficult to fix, require more technology than a simple rocker switch. But they are cool. I'll grant you that. It's awesome when they work, right? But that is the way I see us moving in sort of the opposite direction in terms of the technology and layout of these RVs.
Yeah, I know, Bluetooth is a big thing or whatever. You can connect your RV from 60 miles away, through via internet, and like you can turn it up and down and whatnot. Yeah, that's all great and dandy, but when it works, analog switches, come on, like they're going to work and they're easy to switch out. It makes everything easier. It's kind of funny you said that the no access panel behind the 12-volt fridges. That was a sales point for me. As in, there's always a way to sell something, right? If they had a feature added benefit, right? Well, the feature is, it's a 12-volt. The added benefit to that is that there's less holes in the sidewall. You can't get rodents in there. There's less leaking of heat and air. But for your side of things, it makes things worse. So interesting perspective on that. Did you freeze on me? You still there?
For a couple seconds.
Okay, kind of going in and out here. I'll ask the next question here. Oh no, we lost him. Oh gosh, sorry guys. We're gonna cut this real quick. 44. Let's see. He's back. got him, and it's very clear. You must have got some better something.
The Starlink outside is talking to us, I guess.
Yeah, well, yeah, it just got really clear. So, all right. Well, I'm not even going to cut that portion out. It was like 3 seconds. So, looking ahead, Mike, what do you think are some of the biggest opportunities for improving customer service in the RV industry? It sounds like you said, the warranty thing. That would be a big one. Is there anything else that you would kind of tag onto that?
Yeah. So, and I'm an inspector, so I'm going to plug inspectors, and I think that the separate professional third-party inspection is the biggest opportunity for the dealership if we can figure out how to do it. So, I come in, I'm a technician, I have all these skills, right? I don't have a dog in the fight. I'll just come in and document the way the RV is. And then, especially on a new one, then I give it to the RV techs that work at the dealership, and they can just fix everything under warranty, right? There are several of my dealers in this area that say, oh, cool, Mike's here. We're going to get paid because he's going to find all these things, right? So, so that's great. And in the early days of RV inspecting, there was this sort of adversarial relationship between inspectors and dealers. And it doesn't need to be that way. So I think if the industry could find a way to coexist with this growing field of RV inspections, and then we, the inspectors, make sure that we are acting professionally and making calls that are within the scope and are not unduly injecting our own sort of animus into this, that could be huge. Because now, right, we can say, hey, this guy who has no dog in this fight says this stuff is broken. As a dealer, I can say, okay, yeah, we will fix it. Or if it's a used unit, this is what's in the scope of what we will fix. But then everyone agrees on it. And then there's the benefit to the dealer where if something does go wrong, you kind of get a finger to point, right? You can say like, well, hey, you brought your inspector in and you said he was better than us and they missed this. So that doesn't happen particularly often, but it's never happened to me. But I think if we could look at this and look as these are being used as homes more and more, if we drew the comparison to home sales, we said, all right, well, somebody comes in and looks it over that's not affiliated, that would be huge. And it just would be a deconfliction, right? That way we all agree on the condition of the thing we're buying and selling. As time has gone on, as I've been in this a few years, I'm encountering more and more dealerships, and I heard Josh and JD both say, yeah, we recommend having that private inspection before you buy. But I don't think that we inspect probably not even 1% of RV purchases, in the United States. So we've got a ways to go, but I think that would be enormously helpful, if just that extra layer of scrutiny.
I mean, how many, I guess, third-party inspectors are there out there?
So when we talk about, just for the sake of the audience, when we're talking about third-party inspectors, we're talking about the National RV Inspectors Association. It's a school in East Texas. That's where you go to get certified. There's only a few hundred, right? There's not that many inspectors right now. And it's very challenging to make an RV inspector business right now. So most, even like dedicated RV inspectors, have to also be technicians to pay the bills. So there's very few of us that only do the one. And so there's not enough inspectors for what should be the demand. There's also not enough awareness of the service that people are taking advantage of. So we've got a ways to go too before. I mean, if we inspected 10% of all RV sales, every RV inspector would be slammed busy every day and every night. They'd be booked out for months. You'd be mad because sales would be backing up, right? It would be tough. But I think that is something I feel very strongly about. I think that is a huge opportunity. I wish that the manufacturers would start to include those inspectors in their dealership level training. Same thing with mobile techs. The more training and the more understanding and the more together that we can work, the better this will be for all of us.
I think appreciate that. I've never thought about that. I think it's like you said, it would back up a lot of things. Because I've sold, spot deals gone. I've had within 2 hours of customer walk in and 3 hours later they're walking out with an RV. I think it'd be kind of interesting to see that happen, or at least offer it, within the, say, hey, this is the one that we agree on. We're going to put money down on it. We're going to pick it up in 2 weeks. But like as a dealer, you could be like, hey, well, we do offer a third party inspection if you don't feel comfortable with it. That would be kind of like almost like a sales point for me if I was a salesman again. It'd be kind of interesting. Like, hey, we do a PDI, we go through this thing head to toe. We get a full walkthrough when you're there, but things do happen. Putting my salesman shoes back on. But the fact that you could have a third party inspector come in and is like, hey, if you guys don't, feel comfortable with this, we have like 5 or 6 guys, third party inspectors. You can bring them in here if you want. That'll happen between, you picking up and whatever. I think that would also push along the sales process because I've had people on the edge. They don't trust anybody. And, those customers are usually the worst customers. But it's because it's almost like they worry it into a problem. It's like there was no issue with the RV until you worried so much. Then all of a sudden there's an issue. And it happens to us where people will call us and they'll say, hey, I'm going to go to XYZ dealership and I want to go look at, this RV. Say, sweet, this is the process. And around here, we know everybody, so it's not an issue anymore. But usually, but then when they would come back and say, oh, dealership said that they don't allow outside inspectors, so now we're not going to buy from them. Do you know a dealer that sells this brand of RV that does allow inspectors? And then that dealer gets the sale. And it's what it's really about is, and this in sales, the more times you tell somebody no, the harder it is to overcome, right? So you don't really want to hit them with that hard no, and saying, even just the answer, we don't think you need one because we do such a great job. But if you want to bring your own guy in to prove it, I'm happy to have him in. Yeah. That signals so much trust, because you're proud of your own business, which is great. Yep. But then you're saying, hey, we don't mind the extra scrutiny, and if we miss something, we'll solve it. And that's the number one thing that dealers do tell me is, the inspection does slow the process down, which it does. Like you said, some deals happen today and they want to leave right now. Even if there was, and I do warranty inspections where call me in the first 90 days before that, many manufacturers that sealant warranty expires after 1 quarter. Well, call me in then and we'll do it then, right? That's fine. Or even if dealers said 7-day grace period, on a used one or something, bring us a list and we'll figure it out. There's a lot of ways to cut that cake. And if we could have a conversation about what the best, safest, and most practical way to do it, I think everyone would win. Yeah. Yeah. I think it'd be interesting. I mean, like you said, it would, for me, in certain situations, would solidify. I sold a lemon one time, not trying to. The guy drove from a long ways away. And I did a full, very thorough walkthrough, showed him everything he asked. I walked on the roof, did this, that, and the other. I'm like, it looks fine. There's nothing across the seals, the top, across the corners. The slide works fine. Did a video of that in and out. Look at the alignment. I up and down went through this thing. He comes up, takes it home, falls apart, and I felt awful because I spent hours with this guy on this one RV, but it happens, there's nothing you can do. Like you might, as an inspector, I'm sure things still happen after your inspection, right? Yeah. It's an RV. They go down the road, earthquake forces and hurricane force speeds, just things happen. And that's the kind of the part that we were talking about earlier was there's one of the differences for like our inspection is just that, there's going to be a picture in my report with 2 thermometers in the air conditioner that shows the temperature in and the temperature out. So like we can verify that at this time the AC worked. And, and that's, I think the difference is like, well, yeah, maybe you hit a huge pothole while you're driving through Louisiana. And that's why the wall broke. It wouldn't have broken if you hadn't hit that giant pothole, right? But we can verify its condition on Monday. And then what you do to it on Wednesday after you flip it off a cliff is something, totally different. And that, when you look at it like that, because even I had a customer once who called me, their residential refrigerator stopped working the day after they took it home and they were mad at me. So, well, here's the photos of the refrigerator working with this. So he went outside and sure enough, it had just like rattled itself unplugged on the ride home. He plugged it back in and it worked. Like
that stuff happens. It's not anyone's fault. But at least then he was able to say, oh, yeah, it did work. I should look for another issue or another cause for this.
Another issue. Look for another issue.
Yeah, look for another issue.
There's got to be one here somewhere.
There's got to be an issue.
Yeah. But other than that, Mike, would you give is there another piece of advice you'd give to manufacturers or dealers to better serve their customers?
Yeah, it's just about expectation management. Just about the process, the status of the RV, how they can get service, right? It all happens so fast, and there's honestly, the internet is full of bad information, right? So the advent of AI generates all kinds of bad takes, right? And so if they just did a better job managing the expectations about the process and the actual quality of the thing and where it's at, I think that would go a long way. We didn't discuss this. My first career was in law enforcement. I was in law enforcement for a long time. So I had to make people do things that they didn't want to do on the worst day of their life, right? And what I found was if I could just explain to them the process and how things were going to work, and I was generally a pretty chipper guy about it, most of the time things would go. There's obviously outliers. That's why they were bulletproof vests, right? But most of the time, if the process was clear, the expectation was well understood, things went well. And that's something that's something that honestly the industry could do for free, is manage expectations. It wouldn't be a huge cost.
Yeah, and I remember. So I was really good. So I got good at sales. One, I try to make it as friendly as possible. Take out the sales. I try to take it out as much as possible. What I also did was I'd tell you 3 steps before something was going to happen. Like, here's exactly how it's going to go. And I'd say it over and over and over and over and over until like, they're like, oh, by the end of the sale, it'd be like, oh, it's exactly what you said. I'm like, yeah, because I'm open about it. Like if I can make everything more smooth, there's like an old, the causing friction. Don't cause friction in a sale, right? Does the hard no, don't ever say hard no. Because, the manager might, lean one way if he has to, or whatever it may be, no, but I'll figure it out. No, but I can do, there's always something behind it, but like never causing friction for the customer is the best way to go about a sale that I found, or just about anything. So just after the sales process, how it all is going to work, this is how this works. Or if you have any problems, this is how your warranty works. I wasn't really great on the warranty side of things. But luckily we sold Jayco as our number 1 brand. So that helped out a lot. They have their issues too, like everybody else. But it was just kind of a nice thing for helping out. So here, let's kind of look to the future, Mike. You've been doing great. Thank you so much for being here again. But let's look to the future of the industry. What are some most significant challenges the RV industry needs to tackle to improve both product quality and customer trust as we sit now?
It is, like we said, it's all about management expectation and clear communication. And there was a brand who was going to remain nameless that had a PR crisis this year and last year, right? And they ultimately came out and said, we're going to warranty these frames for however many years. Sweet. The problem is that right before that, they used the words rumors and misinformation, which sounded like they were pointing the finger saying like, this isn't really true. You guys are kind of full of it, but because we want to be a good company, we're going to do this. And, honestly, I had been that customer's, I owned that brand of RV. And the second I read that email, they lost my business because I was like, oh, well, you're dismissing these people's concerns. So transparency and management expectation go a long way. And that is, I think, the future. And that, like we talked about at the beginning, simply guaranteeing that it's not going to leak for the first 90 days that you own it under normal operating conditions is desirable, right? Like that's because, I hate when people call the technician side of our business and say, I bought this week. Are you an XYZ warranty company because it's leaking already? It's like, oh God, like it's brand new. It's going to have water intrusion. Maybe it had water intrusion this whole time, right? Maybe it's been sitting on the lot and it's happened where, an RV is 2 weeks old and I open a cabinet and the door rips out. So, if we could manage expectations about that and then zero in on those must-have every times, no leaks, all the appliances work, and good education about what to do moving forward, that would be an optimal outcome.
Yeah, it makes a lot of bit of difference. It is like you said, it is unfortunate that sometimes that happens. I had brand new RVs, same thing. You're like, well, crap, you got to go tell somebody about this. But do you see a shift in the way RVs are being designed to built to meet changing customer needs or demands, and such as growing interest in off-grid or boondocking capabilities? This is kind of a little one-off question, but it was on here.
Yeah. There's a big demand for residential style comfort and amenities. This is a Brinkley. We bought it for that reason, right? So this is going to spoil the reveal, so bummer. But no, there's a huge demand for that, and then you see the difference. A lot of manufacturers are talking about the construction of their cabinetry and their countertops, moving away from that sort of like pressboard laminate stuff they used forever and some of the medium high-end stuff. That's awesome. I'm seeing more solar, installations. I see lithium batteries. I'm seeing good inverter setups straight from the factory. And then there's a whole little cottage industry of people who build even better things going on. I see things like Furion, chill cubes, right, where you can run theoretically 2 ACs on 150 amp circuit, which is going to be better for boondocking, right? If you're running on generators or big solar setups. That stuff is awesome. There does need to be, I'd like to see a little, once again, expectation management and owner education, because, I'll go do an inspection and, maybe it's it's got 2 solar panels, 700 watts on the roof, a couple of lithium batteries, but then a simple inverter setup that like powers the receptacles and that's it. And then I'll get a call, well, hey, it doesn't run the air conditioner. Well, it wasn't designed to. Right, this one was not designed to run your air conditioner or your fireplace. It was designed to run the outlets, and maybe 1 or 2 hydro appliances. You can certainly upgrade it, but I think that people don't fully understand how that solar stuff works. I've had people come up to me, and this is not a joke. They have a solar panel on the roof, and then they're staying full time in an RV park, and they expect it to work like a house, where it rolls the meter back like you're generating electricity, and they don't understand it's not the same as a residence, that it's really there to charge your batteries. So some education there is optimal and desirable, but that stuff is really cool. I think it's going to keep growing because the demand is there. More people are wanting to do BLM land and all this other stuff. Yep. That's great. I love it. I used to work in the solar industry, so I'm a big fan of that stuff. I'm interested to see, we're like still in the baby phases of EVs and electric RVs and what that's going to look like. I saw a Cybertruck pulling a Wildwood the other day. So, I'm interested to see what that looks like, how you incorporate some kind of EV charging downstream. But more on that another day.
Well, I think, doesn't Pebble do that? I think that Pebble RV, you ever heard of them?
Yeah, I did hear about that. Yeah, there's a couple companies that do, like, I think even, was it Grand Design or Thor? I forget who it was, but they were going to make where there was like little electric motors in the travel trailer tires where that would help push. Yeah, and then there was a big solar array on the roof.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. There's a lot of cool stuff coming, and with the advancement of AI, like you kind of mentioned that earlier. I mean, oh man, it could be real scary in the next 20 years. It could be scary or it could be really cool. Probably a little bit of both. But it is what it is. I'm excited for it either way.
Yes.
Well, Mike, this has been awesome. Very insightful. I appreciate your time. But I guess we didn't hit on one thing that, you're a full timer. We never really hit on that. I didn't really think about coming in this with that. I knew you kind of lived in an RV, but I never thought about that. Are you full time, as in like even up north and down south?
Yeah, we are. We actually own 2 RVs, but we live in this one primarily. That one I have some plans for some renovations and changes I want to make to it. But so yeah, we are full-time RVers. We've been doing this full-time. This is our first full year that we did it full-time.
Okay.
And so what we do is we kind of move our business seasonally to reflect. There's not a lot of demand for repairs and inspections in Illinois and Wisconsin right now. So come to Texas where there's a lot of demand, and then we float back and forth. We have a young son He's 6. And so the idea was, well, let's do this now while he's young and doesn't really care as much about his friends. And so we can do it now. And then, after a couple of years, we can decide if we want to stop and settle down in one place.
Oh, very nice. So, I mean, you're riding in a Brinkley right now, Model Z?
Yeah, it's a Z Air 295.
Oh, really? Okay. So does that have the little bunk room in the back then?
Yeah, it's got a little bedroom right there for him. And while we have contractors and stuff, I am the technician that goes out into the world and does things. So I couldn't give up my truck bed for a fifth wheel. So we wanted the best. We wanted the best travel trailer that we could find that kind of checked all the boxes. The one thing we gave away was like a kitchen table. We have an island instead, but yeah, he gets his own room. We have our own room. The kitchen is huge. 2 air conditioners versus 1. So far, in this month-long ownership, it's been great.
So far.
Except for that broken fan.
Yeah, well, damn that thing. It's an RV. It will happen. But Mike, is there anything else you'd like to add? You've been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. I've been joining in so willingly. Anything else you'd like to add before we kind of close out here?
No, I'm really grateful that y'all would have me on as an independent inspector and technician. That means a lot to me and will mean a lot to the inspectors. So I would just say, if you are an RV owner, it's cool to ask questions at the dealership. And as a dealership, you should be like, hey, if I don't know the answer, I'll find it. There's tons of small businesses out there that can help you too. Mine is included. If you're wanting to find an inspector or a technician, there's websites out there. nrvia.org will help you find an inspector, and rvtaa.org will help you find a technician, and many of them can help you with your warranty claims. And just as an inspector, talking to the industry, we're not the enemy. Like, we're all on the same team, one fight. I love the RV life. Our motto was worry-free camping. I want everyone to enjoy worry-free camping because your life sucks when you're in your RV and you're trying to sleep and it's leaking right on your face, right?
Yeah.
I don't want that for anyone. I know that Bishop doesn't want that for anyone. I know the chains don't want, the manufacturers don't want that. We can all agree on that. So I would say let's work at least on that together. But I'm grateful that y'all had me on. I really do appreciate it.
I really do appreciate it, Mike. It was very insightful. I didn't know what I was getting myself into today. I didn't know how I guess tenured you were in the RV industry. Luckily, I mean, it sounds like you know your stuff. It sounds like you know a lot, and you brought in some really good insights today that I never thought of, and we didn't even cover with Josh and JD, who've been in it for together over 30 years. So you're doing great things. I appreciate your time, and I'm going to tell you, if you guys want to reach out to Cozy Camper, he does really great. He does that's how we got connected, was on Instagram. And I was watching your stuff, and I was like, this guy knows his stuff. I would like to talk to him. So I reached out to him. So that's his Instagram. He has also a big following on Facebook, so you can follow him there. It doesn't matter which, if you have Instagram, Facebook. Is it all basically the similar stuff? Basically, you cross post and all that?
Yeah, it's probably 95% the same stuff.
Okay. And then Cozy Camper website, you are a mobile technician as well as inspector.
That's right.
Resides mostly in Wisconsin, Illinois during the summer months, and then down south in Austin area for the winter months. So you can check them out there as well. And then anything else, you got the whole link tree on there. Guys, thank you all for watching today. If you would like to help us grow on the RV Voice, we want to keep doing this. And we got a good push on our side of things. And please follow us on the YouTube side of things. We are also on Spotify, Apple, a couple other podcast platforms. My boss runs that stuff, so I'm not super familiar with all the other podcast platforms. But we are on Amazon, I'm pretty sure, YouTube, Music, and then there's another one that I don't exactly remember. But yeah, so everyone out there, thank you so much for following. Please hit that follow and stay tuned for more from the RV.